He's here.
Oh, hello. Get up here. So next up we have Andy Gailey back on stage for the 10th time so far, I think. And George is staying on. The next panel, from Brussels to the factory floor, will EU machinery regulation 2023-1230 redefine liability in UK industry? I'm going to step out of the way and let you guys chat.
Thank you very much.
Hello again.
Hello again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah.
It's a long time no see.
Yes, I know. So the idea of this piece is that I'm going to be you. So I genuinely didn't know anything about this EU regulation until about a week or two ago.
Yeah, about
that. We had a chat. It's my business. I do work with people that specify or purchase new assets and bring them into the business. And obviously looking at CE marks and things like that, and do pure assessments, and do fat tests obviously before they come in the factory. But this was news to me, so I'm assuming it's going to be news to a lot of you out there. So I'm going to be your advocate, and I'm going to ask some of these questions. Just to start it off, the EU machinery regulation, it's called the EU machinery regulation 2023/1230. My first question, the new regulation, George, when does it officially come to pass? So when does it actually become relevant?
So, I mean, the short answer is 20th of January 2027 when it officially comes into, well, it is already within legislation, but when the scope is actually applicable. And that's when the machinery directive will also become redundant, so it'll be removed. Is it worth just saying a little bit about exactly what it is what is going on? So, I mean, I think a lot of people after the last talk will know already what the machinery directive is, but for anyone who doesn't know what the machinery directive is, since 1993, so December 1992, January 1993, every machine that's been manufactured in the EU and the UK has had to meet the requirements of the machinery directive 2006/42 EC in manufacturing. Now, machinery safety experts will get exactly what that means, but for those of you who might be just in procurement and just deal with machinery, you might be more familiar with how that presents, which is every machine needs a CE mark on it. This has been out since, like I say, 1993. It's been in force since 1993, and over those years it's had about 2 updates, the last of which was in 2006, 20 years ago.
20 years, okay.
Yeah. So 20 years, and you think about how much engineering and the world has changed, even over the past 5 years, how much it's all changed. There's so much more technology out there, differences of how we do things compared to 20 years ago, that we needed to update the legislation. I say we, but the legislation needed updating, and to do so, rather than just updating the machinery directive, what's happened is they're introducing the new machinery regulations over top of that and removing the directive.
Okay, so how's that going to impact if you're in the UK as a manufacturer or as a vendor? How's that going to impact us?
For the end users, the impact is probably going to be fairly minimal. It's potentially unnoticeable, really. But updates do happen. We know that. We know updates do happen. It's nothing new there. I think really directly from the regulation changes, what most people, end user wise, are going to notice, as in food and beverage manufacturers, is the increased requirements for cybersecurity, for example, things like that, which is a bit of a buzzword for the regulations, but also things like documentation, how that's been received by, or how that's been sent by the manufacturer of the machine. The actual impact is probably more likely to be the increased awareness around it, because, I mean, there's no coincidence that AD, our founding director of ST&L, started his career in machinery safety when the first directive came out in 1989. He started the business when Pure came out, and I started my career in machinery safety when this first became relevant. So the increased awareness is already presenting itself in all these different ways, and that is probably what's going to affect most people. People are actually talking about machinery safety for the first time in 20 years again.
Yes. What kind of benefits do you see this is going to bring to the food and beverage industry, specifically like manufacturing things or the vendors of machines?
So for vendors of machines, manufacturers of machines, I mean, it's a catalyst for change, isn't it? One of the benefits of this for end users as well as vendors, but there's more clarity around certain definitions. Substantial modification is what it's called in the machinery regulations. What it used to be referred to as was significant modification has now been really clearly defined.
Okay,
in essence, what that is if you make so much of a change to a machine that it's no longer the same machine anymore, then you may need to re-CE mark it and assume the position of manufacturer. But that clarity means that you can avoid doing that, basically.
So does that mean that if you're re-engineering something slightly on, as an owner of an asset, do you then become liable for that?
Potentially, but that's down to the definition. There's also changes about who economic operators actually are and clearing up the definition between who a manufacturer is, who a distributor is, who an importer is, and that makes it easy to know your place in the food chain.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key benefits, really.
Yeah. My next question is about, regarding machine safety, what would the implications of this new EU legislation bring? I don't know whether it's worth asking it, because I think we've just covered some of that.
We have, yeah.
Anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, as far as implications go, there are probably more implications than there are benefits. I don't think it's easy to say that there are many benefits to the new regs.
Yeah.
But the implications, I mean, again, I want to be the voice of calm in the room and say, there's nothing to lose your head over. People have, these updates have happened in the past. This is something that everyone will figure out, and there's people like us that can give you support on it. But most of the major implications are like ancillary to the actual regulation changes, the text of the regulation themselves. Because when the regs change, for example, things like the OJEU gives you a list of harmonised standards to follow. We haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
There will be one, but currently we don't have any standards that we can actually follow. Also, things like the guide. There was a fantastic document that you could literally use to keep doors open, called the Guide to the Machinery Directive. We don't have a version of that yet. There is going to be a version, but we haven't seen it. But they've introduced a bit of a backup plan with the harmonised standards. You can use common specifications, but again, we haven't seen that either.
Okay.
So all these knock-on
and
effects.
yet we're only kind of 6 months away from that.
Yeah,
being
exactly.
in effect, and it was kind of 3 years ago it kind of kicked off.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, so for that, there's clarity because of the new text, but then there's a lack of clarity because of how it's affected everything else. Also, I don't know if anyone noticed, it was fairly discreet, but we're no longer part of the EU, by the way. And so that this actually, how this affects us, it's a bit odd because officially it doesn't. Because it's an EU legislation, it's not UK, but because of the changes and the announcements made by the UK government, it's kind of a twofold thing that firstly they're going to update the supply machinery safety regulations, which is our ratification of the original directive, and they're going to update it so that it hopefully aligns near enough. I think officially they've said it won't align directly, but it'll align near enough with the regulations.
Okay, yeah.
But the other thing is that we have said that as a country we're going to continue to recognise the CE mark, but no legislation has actually been laid down to say what that CE mark is made to.
Yeah.
So the regulations need legislation laying down in our country as well.
So if we're in the food and beverage industry in the UK, what are the kind of things that we're going to notice change-wise if we are specifying a new asset, or we're actually in the procurement department?
Yeah.
Is there any like the preamble into manufacturing an asset? Is that going to have a marked effect?
Yeah, probably. Again, minimal. So again, it's around the harmonised standards list because we haven't seen it. We're not sure. We can't be sure that it's going to be the same process exactly because they might be following things like common specifications. But also, when you're provided with a machine, the first thing you should do is check for any obvious faults. Second thing you should do is probably make sure that they've actually put a CE mark on the machine. It's a good start. And then you should also check that the declaration of conformity that's provided with that machine is correct. Now, one of the things that you should look out for is that if anyone provides you with a machine after January that says 2006-42 EC on it, the machinery directive, not the machinery regulation, alarm bells should start ringing.
Okay, yeah.
If they haven't got that bit right, how have they got the rest of it right?
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned earlier on the cyber security word.
Yeah.
And I would assume part of these regulations coming along is because, as you say, the step changes in 20 years in how we operate assets and how they talk to other things in the atmosphere. So can you comment on the importance of that cyber security within the asset group?
Yeah.
And especially concerning machine safety?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we say cybersecurity, and I think when you say cybersecurity, people think about data, theft of data and protecting that, whereas actually in these instances, to do with the machinery regulation, what it's more about is about cyber safety, essentially. Okay. So you can imagine a huge ASRS, automatic send and retrieval system, that can be controlled remotely by the manufacturer, because most manufacturers of machines do that. They say, look, we can link into the machine and do any maintenance or changes to it. Brilliant. But what if somebody who isn't supposed to link into that machine does and takes control of it, or even worse, disables all the safety functions? Then we're heading towards disaster.
So it's about the risk of hacking or bad actors getting involved in that interface.
Yeah, essentially. Or even good actors, really, because one of the requirements of they've introduced a new essential health and safety requirement, 1.1.9, which is around corruption, which is their way of saying cybersecurity. And what this is about, the main requirements is that any changes to software is logged within the system, so they can go back and track where the change happened, but also that change shouldn't be able to happen from outside of the trusted circle of people.
Okay. And finally, I've got what say 3 things that the audience can take away from what we've just discussed on the EU legislation. I mean, I actually went, when I knew I was going to come and do this, I actually went and Googled it and tried to read the first few paragraphs and pages, and I went to sleep pretty quick, I can tell you that. So, but I'm not building machines, and I'm not carrying out assessment for safety. So if you are, what would those 3 things be to do?
First one is don't panic. I mean, there is a lot of panic mongering going on, but the changes are reasonable but not insane. So don't panic about it. Everything can be taught or learned or understood, or you can gain assistance from people like us. The second thing is...
So ST&L could help us?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the
second
point. It's not an advert.
I'm sure there are other consultancies out there, but ST&L are actually here today, so you can go and speak to George later.
Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't an advert, but yeah, if you do need help, that's the second point really, is get help. There are, and we are good at what we do, but there are other people out there, absolutely. But gain help from people, because we know it better than most in the industry.
Yeah, focus on that.
The third point really is just check what you're doing. You should already really, when you're procuring machinery, like I say, check that the declaration of conformity is right. It's a really trivial point, but check it's right. Check that it doesn't have the old directive on there, because if they've got that wrong, the likelihood is they've got plenty of other things wrong as well. So make sure that that's right, and if it isn't right, question it. Just remember, do you know what CE mark stands for? CE stands for?
I've got a clue.
Check everything.
Check everything. So due diligence then. Make sure you're doing your due diligence, and that's a big red flag if you see that. Then somebody hasn't done the work.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thanks for this. I've learned a lot, and I've only been here 10 minutes talking to George, so hopefully everybody else has learned a little bit about the new EU directive.
Yeah, hopefully. Absolutely.
And I hope you have a great rest of show, and go and speak to George in ST&L.
Yeah, we're over there. Still D4.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Cheers, Andy.
Yeah, that was great.
Pardon? Thanks, chaps.